When asked what SDG was important to me, I immediately thought of quality education for all by 2030. Now, many people may ask why education? Why not something more immediate and lasting to survival, like the second Sustainable Development Goal to end world hunger by 2030? Although all the other goals are important in their own way, improving the quality of education for all is the most important to me. Here's why. Many underdeveloped countries have a very low quality of education, and many people cannot afford to send their children, much less themselves, to a school rated with a higher level of education because of high expenses. The fact that this happens is very troubling. Many kids have the potential to be amazing minds in our world. However, they do not have the means to work on themselves and contribute to the academic world. One of the reasons that this is so important to me is that my dad's family, went through a similar struggle of having to sacrifice a lot just so he could go to school. My aunt volunteered to drop out of school just so they could afford to send my dad. My point is that if a poor kid from Guyana can end up being an academic leader and solving problems around the world, then what's stopping so much of the world that has no access to higher quality of education? Also, my aunt shouldn't have had to drop out in the first place. Because of a lack of quality of education, minds are being wasted. Improving the quality and access to education would make sure that everyone has a chance to not only provide better for themselves with newfound knowledge, which would allow people to advocate for themselves, know the world around them better, and get better jobs, but it would allow people not to be limited by the society that surrounds them. On another point, improving education for all would, in the long term, also work to complete the other Sustainable Development Goals. If people everywhere are educated, especially in underdeveloped countries, would they not care more about things like improving accessibility to food and nutrition, improving the quality of health, and improving gender equality, just to name a few? The main point is that educated people can think critically. Allow the rest of the world to do that, and many of the world's problems will have the number of people working on them skyrocket. Right now, much of the world's problems are being focused on by people in North America and Europe, richer countries with a higher level of education. An important narrative is missing, namely from people in underdeveloped countries. If we can get that, the other goals can be completed easier. Improving education could also have the impact of lowering corruption. Many corrupt leaders rely on the fact that their people do not have very high levels of education, and using that fact to their advantage, they can control the masses easier. Higher quality education would at least combat this. We do not have quality education everywhere in Canada. The fact that especially many Native communities do not have quality education is depressing. A country that prides itself on its education should not have that happening. If a country like Canada has poor education standards for some of the people in it, what does that say about the rest of the world? It's time for a change so that people have more of an ability to get out of abusive low-paying jobs, get out of underdevelopment, and get into the global frontier of thinking. After all, what else is the destiny of the human mind if not to think with each other? And why should underdeveloped places be subject to miss out on that? Also, education allows people to advocate for themselves, hold people accountable, and it allows people to develop themselves personally. When more and more people develop themselves on a personal level, it raises the level of ultimate development in a place. So with the development of personal lives comes the development of society, which would improve the quality of everyone's lives. That is why education is the most important SDG for me.